can check it out if you feel like going. It's called the Rabat Talim al Islamim. That's who gives you the credentials. And it's made up of Muslim leadership from every country in the world where there is a Muslim. And we even had a representative on the board, was a black-skinned Pakistani, which I knew nothing about until I got there. Oh yes, Warathian, you remember Warathian studied at Al-Azhar, which is, by the way, the Library of Alexandria, for those who want to do some research. Al-Azhar University, the reason this is the oldest university in the world, because that is where the remnants of the so-called Library of Alexander is. And the Library of Alexander got nothing to do with Alexander. It was just a lot of science and sacred books of African peoples that's trying to tell us how to live life as human beings in an orderly, peaceful, harmonious, and balanced way, and how to do that in context with cosmology and ecology. Out of that, this produced all the science of the West, the mathematics, geometry, the physics, and all the other things as little tools to study our little basic universe that we're in. So a lot of times we don't really have fights. Warathian was trying to fit us into a world of Muslims, which is one of the largest religious body in the world. But what he didn't take into account, the Filipino Muslims ain't trying to imitate the Pakistani Muslim, and the Pakistani Muslim ain't trying to imitate the Saudi Arabian Muslim. Even the Muslims in Yemen, right next door to Saudi Arabia, ain't trying to roll like the Saudi Arabians have rolled. So why do we have to roll like any of them? Just like they can adopt their religious principles to their historical reality, we should have had and should have been respected for having done the same thing, because that's what the messenger did for us. Not that deeply. I've read a lot of teachings, and I met the brother, and I met his other brother as well, and I've talked deeply about things I will not talk about here. I know them. I'm a Hajj, and I was an imam for 18 years over multiple mosques. So I'm not new to it. Warathian, like anybody else in the world, was simply trying to take a truth. There's only one sun up in the sky. We can all interpret it as many ways as we want to. That's just our interpretation. There's only one sun in the sky. There's only one moon up there circling this planet that's being affected by the sun. There's only one earth that we live on. And so and everybody tries to interpret it as best they can based on the body of knowledge that they have. And a lot of it gets into other people's belief and understanding. Our job, who are the students of people, is to try to master the science that they're teaching us so we can understand what they understand, not mimic their understanding of the science. And that's the hard work, because there's a lot of wisdom in the Quran, but there's also a lot of wisdom in the Bible. How many people know that you can get a book that would be equal to Bible or Quran out of the Yorubas and look at the Odus, their verses of wisdom that's explaining the universe? Or you can read the Bhagavad Gita of the people in India, or the Upanishad, or the Rig Veda, or you can read the books of the Japanese Shinto. They're all saying the same thing in different cultures, all of them. There can only be one God, one divine. We can name it anything they want. There's nobody on the planet Earth, or nobody has ever lived, that can tell you that some divine gave them a particular name. They made up those names because it fit the description of what they understood. And that makes sense. But I'm not going to be the slave to anything or anybody, and I don't have to be a slave to that which rules everything. It doesn't need slaves. I just want to be free. And what frees you is knowledge and understanding. Different people approach the teaching differently, but at the end of the day, what you want to develop is a human being that has the respect for his or her life, and have the respect for the life of other human beings, have the respect for the life of living things in nature, and have the caring for those living things in nature. And understand that to be healthy, you had to be healthy in multiple different ways in order to be in harmony. Everybody in this room will die. Does that mean an ending? How much do we know? Does that mean an ending or beginning? Everybody in this room was birth. Was that a beginning of an ending or something? How much do we really know about life? Yet all of those books and all of those religions, that's what it's trying to do. But all of them are born out of men, mostly men, fighting to say, my way is the way. And in their wake, they left billions of dead human beings. So for me, I'm just studying and trying to learn and being honest with me at the end of the day. And the great ones who came before us, like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Warathine Muhammad, Noble Jew Ali, Marcus Garvey, they were doing the same things. They were just people trying to find this way, you know. Booker T. Washington, be afraid to call Booker T's name, but Garvey says, I came to America to implement the Tuskegee model, but when we talk about Garvey, we never mention Booker, who invites Garvey to come here.
That's right.
So we just have to study truth, know the truth. That's a dictum. The truth will set you free. Now, truth isn't something you're going to learn out of a book or in one occasion in your lifetime. It's your whole life will spend trying to find that quest. Warathine was an extraordinary teacher. Nobody can dare say he wasn't. But that's what he was, an extraordinary teacher. His father was an extraordinary teacher. We don't know whether Allah came to any of them except if they tell us Allah came to them. We don't know who Allah is until Allah comes to us. But we've been brought up in a culture where we don't believe that the thing we call the divine will even come to us. We've been brought up to think we need to be slave to a theology, and we will even kill and abuse in the name of a theology. How does that make any sense? If you're talking about the divine, why would the divine need you to kill anybody? You know, so we need to study our teachers. You know, the last meeting I had with Brother Akbar up at Binghamton, that was his other brother. We spent the whole night together. I'd given a lecture, and I'd gotten in a conflict with some Orthodox Muslim students. I saw him in the audience. I knew he was at Binghamton, and I knew he would be at my lecture. And while I'm lecturing, there's a man up in the audience with a newspaper reading. He wasn't paying no attention to me. Place full of people, but I said, that's got to be him. And when I took on these little Arab students, he stood up. And of course, he was my elder, and I shut my mouth because he was my elder. And I had to leave to catch a plane, and he came and told me, he says, I will buy you another plane ticket in the morning. I will pay for your hotel room tonight if you would just let's sit and talk. And that's what we did. We sat and talked all night long because he was also Malcolm's friend, you know, and very close. And he taught me a lot of things that woke me up to a lot of ignorance I had about the nation and so forth. And about Malcolm, because we have a lot of myth about Malcolm too, you know. But the point is, life is about studying. We're on a journey. Every day is a learning thing. We're trying to find the thing in us that let us see the rest of the world in an appropriate way. How do I wake up the divine in me? How do I wake up the God in me? And how do I able to see you when you've waken up in you and recognize that you've done so? So you and I can then have a basis for relationship, you know. And that takes work, and it takes time. And we are African peoples. Before there was Islam, Africans knew God. Before there was Christianity, Africans knew God. Before there was Judaism, Africans knew God. We had a methodology for worshiping the divine before any of those religions, the Abrahamics, came into being by millions of years. And yet we are left out of the discussion. And it's only because we don't know our way anymore. So we can't have the discussion except for the few who've journeyed back to find the way. But that doesn't make anybody wrong. It just means we got a journey to go on. And it's not a easy journey, but when you get on and you start enjoying it, it can be like really fun. Even when you mess up and you got it wrong and you're willing to change yourself and straighten it out and get it right, it can be fun. You know. Next question.
Oh, yes, Sister Nzinga. 1 second. I'm sorry. We'll get to you. But I'm sorry, Sister. I saw Nzinga first. We'll get right to you. I promise you. You're the next question, and Nzinga's first.
Hotep. I just wanted to commend something important out of everything that you spoke on tonight when you said that we're fragmented. So what I wanted to say is not so much a question as it is a quick comment. Without unity, there is no progress. And us being fragmented is the problem. This is about politics, what it can be done in our community, and us being fragmented. The point that you raised earlier about whether we're from the Caribbean, African, whether we're Nigerian, African, whether we're African here in America, African, AKA New African, all of the fragmentedness that we express and continue to perpetuate is what keeps us from all the gains that we need to gain and all the benefits that we could.
It's one of the things.
One of the things, yes. And so I just wanted to really thank you for pointing out the failures of us and the fragmentedness of us. That word it really resonated with me when you said we're fragmented, because it has to do with us not having the unity that we need to have.
And let me tell you why we don't have that unity, because we don't know our history. You know, the answers seem too simple for people to accept. History will erase the mystery. You know. Right, but it's the fragments are everywhere, okay? That's part of what the damage in the war against us. There's been a war waged against us physiologically, psychologically, spiritually, intellectually, for thousands of years. And we are suffering now as we are trying to clear the dust out of our eyes and see what happened. But you've got to know the history. Whose history are you really mimicking? If you're mimicking the history of the ones who committed the genocide, then you will continue to commit the genocide against yourself. What is the history of the ones who the genocide was committed against? So you can know how to react as they would react. We've got to learn our history. And it seems too mundane. It seems too simple. In the history, we got to learn the ideology. We got to learn the politics. You won't even understand ideology if you don't know who you are. What ideology? You know, understand your history. What are you the genesis of, or what is your genesis? You know, what is your genesis? What created you so that you are at this point, right now? Because you have to learn. If I'm going to fix the fractured being, what is the one thing I got to know? What did the being look like or was structured like before they got fractured? I can't reassemble something if I don't know how it was pre-assembled, right? And you're only going to learn that through history. Nigeria has only existed for less than 60 years, so there's no such thing in reality as a Nigerian African. Nigeria is a nation state. And in modern ways, the way we reference ourselves, like I said, I'm an African, that's my race. And we've accepted that term to represent us as a whole, our race. I'm an American, that's my place. That's the geopolitical place in which I reside, in which I pay taxes, in which I participate in politics, in which I work around political struggle. So one is my race and one is my geopolitical place. A young man coming out of Africa may say, I'm Yoruba, but I'm Nigerian. Yoruba is its ethnic nation. Nigeria is its geopolitical nation. There's no Nigerian race. You know, it's a place. And we take places and race and mix them all up. And we can't do that. You know, somebody says, I'm from Jamaica. Okay, so there's a Chinese dude living in Jamaica. When he says, I'm from Jamaica, does the Chinese guy mean the same thing you mean the African guy? No, he doesn't. He's clear he's a Chinese Jamaican, and he's been living there for 100 years, his family. But he's clear, I'm still Chinese, though I live in Jamaica. But when we say Jamaica, we don't make the point that we're still Africans, though we live in Jamaica. We do the same thing in America. We want to say we're an American without being an African. How are you going to be an American without being an African if you're an African American? So we just have to get some things clear in common. That's why some people come up with something called ADOS. And I feel kind of guilty because I think I started all that mess. No, I mean, serious. I did a lecture. I saw it on YouTube not too long ago, about 10 years ago. And I was using the term formerly enslaved Africans in America. And I was trying to find a way for the Africans who had gone through the enslavement process in America to define their cultural parameters in the last 400 years. And some of those who have come up with these little ditties have said that, oh, well, you once said that. That's why I go to their rally and counter them at their own rallies. Tell them, that is not what I meant. You're not going to take something I said, profane it, and then tell me I said it. So I went to Tariq's rallies, and I challenged them on Pan-Africanism, and I challenged them on African unity. I've tried to contact these ADOS people, but they're too scared. They stay away from me, you know. But take the next question, the sister.
Sister in the back, go. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Belle. And
And then Marcus.
can you hear me fine? Okay. I really enjoyed your discussion today. I guess my question is about the post-traumatic syndrome that we are suffering from. I want to know, how do you suppose we help our brothers and sisters conquer that? How do we, because I want to be a part of that. I want to help individuals find their way out of that so that we can unite and not be fragmented any longer.
Let me tell you how I came up to use that term. And there may have been somebody who used it before me, but I don't know anybody who used it before. I was teaching at City College Black Studies, and there was a young lady who would come into class in the middle of the winter, and she wore dark shades. And I a couple of times asked her, well, why don't you take your shades off? But she wouldn't take it off. So at the end of one class, I asked her to stay, and I took the shades off. And she had bruises under her eyes. And so I called my brethren from the Sons of Africa, and I says, we're going to visit her house on Saturday. We visit our house on Saturday, and we had a discussion with the young man who was responsible for that. Of course, our discussion was more than verbal, and he called the police, but after we explained to the police why we had that discussion, he got arrested. That young lady became the head of the battered woman program over at Harlem Hospital, and I tried to look at why would a black man do that to the black woman. Right. And even though I'd had those questions before, but that was so personal enough from me that I started looking at how much of the white man had we, the black man, become. And so we were doing to each other what the white man did to us because we had become the white man. And so I liken it to the American prisoners of war, what is called the Helsinki syndrome, or the Stockholm syndrome. And in the Stockholm syndrome, what was happening was the pain receiver, to minimize the pain, began to psychologically become the pain giver, right? And that reduced the pain psychologically for the pain received.